Well, good morning. Welcome. If you haven't noticed, there's been somewhat of a challenge to boyhood for some time now. We like to talk about boys as the canaries in the mines of our culture. You know, in the olden days, they used to put canaries in mines, and if the canaries started to die, you knew that there were some noxious fumes in there, and the miners would vacate the mines. Well, the boys are like the canaries in our culture. And they're faltering. They're feeling the effects. You know, in the 90s, John referenced this last night, there was an effort to balance the indifference and some of the learning. But what we didn't pay attention to is that where girls were struggling in science and technology and those kind of fields, boys were struggling in language and social skills. And they were way behind in that, but we chose to focus on making our schools a place for girls. And so the curriculum and teaching styles took a more structured approach in the name of equality and fairness and helping the girls to get caught up in those areas. And although an adjustment was needed, there's no question about that, the pendulum has swung so far that schools are primarily designed for children with temperaments that most are seen in girls. Sit still, be quiet, listen, and don't talk. This room, our classes, our churches are not designed for boys. They're designed for people who will sit still, be quiet, pay attention, don't talk. One person talks and everybody listens. Well, those of you who are parents of boys understand that ain't no fun for boys. They already feel like they're behind. Girls are much more amenable to this kind of structured classroom routine. They excel in attentiveness and organization, flat out sitting still. They made up lost ground, and now they're excelling in those areas rather than lagging. And so this morning I'm going to speak to you really from two mini books that I've written, and both you can download for free on the website, or you can go in the store and you can buy them in packets if you want to hand them out. One is Let Boys Be Boys, and the other is 5 Critical Needs of Boys. But one of the things we talk about is in 1969, only 41% of college students were female. Majority of college students were male. Well, since then, 2009, just 40 years later, this is 2009, 10 years ago, it had totally flipped to where 60% of college students were female and 40% were male. It's a complete flip-flop that continues to produce fewer and fewer male graduates. In fact, they have projected out a time where there will no longer be males in college. According to the Department of Education, boys are twice as likely to be enrolled in special education, 3 times more likely to be declared ADHD. High school girls outnumber boys 2-to-1 in the top 10 senior rankings. In every single academic category, boys have fallen behind. The share of young men living at home is higher than ever since the census started counting that in 1960. That's that failure to launch kind of syndrome that's a result of what it is that we're doing to boys in school. My purpose isn't to be critical to girls. I hope you don't hear that, but because they're equally paying a price. Because this one-size-fits-all program is infringing on their unique strengths and temperaments. So my purpose is to engage you in thinking and doing something for boys. A lot of you already are. Not at the expense of girls, but for the good of all of us. So sometimes I'm going to make references that appear as generalities because invariably someone will come up and say, well, my daughter likes to do boy things, or my son likes to do girl things. And I understand that. We're pretty much talking about the bell curve, the stuff in the middle. So understand that while I may be attributing things to a certain sex, the science is irrefutable. The differences between boys and girls. I'm going to skip over that because you heard a lot about that last night. Even in the womb, John, I don't know if you looked at any of this, but research of the response of a baby in the womb, how a boy baby and a girl baby respond in the womb, is different to the stimuli that they provide. They've put certain stimuli in that environment and they respond differently. So at that point, it's not a social construct. You don't have that going on in a womb. Boys and girls are different. In the simplest language, average boys' gifts display more in high energy, impulsivity, physicality. They mature much more slowly than girls and are slower to develop impulse control. And that's really one of my concerns when we talk about organizations that have served boys for over a century, to make a decision about putting boys and girls in the same environment. The thing is you put your boy in that environment because you wanted him to be in a male environment. And because boys develop more slowly than girls, not just physically, but socially and emotionally in so many other ways, they just lag. That's the way that we're built. You take that 10 or 11-year-old boy who maybe struggles in school to be all boy, and so you put him in a boys program, and then Susie shows up, who's faster than he is, who's stronger than he is, who's taller than he is, and suddenly he's in an environment, well, he's losing there too. Not only that, he's losing 2 girls in a company of boys. One of the most disturbing quotes that I heard when the Boy Scouts did their recent change now in girls was that they quoted a scoutmaster in a newspaper article. And this broke my heart. He said, "We love having girls in our program. They're so much smarter and better behaved." And that's true. But aren't boys getting that message enough already? Can't we give them some place where they can be not so smart and not so well behaved because they just they're just not equipped yet to do that? So it's a controversial statement, so if you're prone to being easily triggered, cover your ears. But boys and girls are different. And the politically correct dialogue that makes it difficult to say such outlandish things is having an effect on boys. And it really feels like in a race to prevent tragedy by mentally unstable men, we've assumed that all boys are unstable, and we're treating them as dangerous. I'm not proposing that we make Harvey Weinstein out of all of our boys. To the contrary, I'm making room for encouraging that the nature of boys is part of what develops winning men. You could argue that a lot of what's right with society today is found, if you look closely enough, in the attitudes, the respect, the mutual admiration between the sexes. Winning men come from winning situations where men of good character pass traits along in an environment that recognizes the rough and tumble of boys. So what do we do? Number 1, these are the 3 winning strategies from Let Boys Be Boys. Guys love when I say number 1 because it's like, okay, I should write that down. We've got to embrace the science. We have to understand that there are actually, you heard a lot of it last night, these differences. Other differences that go even beyond some of the things John talked about last night. Boys are born with more rods and cones in their eyes. Now, what does that mean? That means that they can see things in the distance better, but they're also more sensitive to motion. Well, of course, God designed them for that. Like John talked about, to be the watchers, the protectors. They're sensitive to motion, and they can see things in the different distance more clearly. Girls, of course, can see things up close. Now, why would that be? Well, we know for guys, but for girls, what about that mom who's holding that baby? The way her eyes are designed to see things up close. But what does it look like in a classroom? Here's second graders. Here's your worksheet for the day. Color this. My boys would be like, if they make me color something. Somebody shared with me the other day, when I talked about this, they heard me say this in a talk, and they said, actually, somebody shared with me here that they walked into their Sunday school, and they had Legos on the table, and the kid was like, yes! And that boy was in there, and Stuart just shared me that's what made his son. He's got, how old is Hudson? 5 years old, and he's here, he's over in the Kids Adventure, and it helped Hudson enter that room because the first thing he saw was Legos. But you walk into that room and you see a bunch of crayons and a bunch of kids coloring, my boys would be like, oh God, can we go somewhere else? Please, Dad, just beat me. So we sit them in classroom, we sit them at a desk, sit still, be quiet, pay attention, color this thing. Squirrel. Because they're seeing the motion at a distance. So what does that look like to us? ADHD. That boy he can't pay attention. And when we look at the bulleted list of ADHD today, it's stuff that's just like being boys. Look at the diagnoses. It says things like running and talking when you're not supposed to. Hello? Climbing trees when you shouldn't be. All right. Guilty. So are my boys. Ears. Did you know, well, the wives know this, that girls can hear 10 times better than little boys? So what does that look like in a classroom? And the girls are paying attention, and the boys, if there's a soft-spoken teacher, they have to work to pay attention. John talked about last night how our brains are wired different. So if you're in a classroom and you're a boy, you're processing left brain or right brain, left brain or right brain, left brain or right brain. You're at a disadvantage in a classroom where the girls can do it all at once because they're making connection that the boys aren't making, which is why they can get emotional about things that we're just clueless to. Sorry, wrong side of the brain, missed that one. I didn't realize that. Some of you husbands may still deal with this. You don't have to raise your hand. The second thing that's important to boys is risk and competition. Recess is now going or gone from schools. Tug of war is called tug of peace. Red Rover, dodgeball, tag are disappearing because we are told, this is a quote, they can undercut emotional development and create an environment of resentment. Tag. Did you realize how evil tag was? We're punishing boys for the simple circumstance of being boys. And that's why video games are so attractive. That whole theme of risk and competition, boys need that. Anybody oversee a Fox Patrol? Any Woodlands Trail Rangers we have in here? You oversee a Fox Patrol? Or maybe a Sunday school? You got little kids, some of you ladies, and little boys? You got that 5 and 6 year old boy that comes to you and say, can I go to drink a water? When you say yes, you have fired the starting pistol. They are off to that water fountain. That's just in them. That's the way that they're wired. That's why they're drawn to video games. That risk and competition. Here's a place where they keep score. I know exactly where I stand. I win, I lose. I can be better than somebody else. I can get points. I can progress levels. Love that world. That's what boys were built for. But we drive them out of the normal world and tell them you can't play tag, you can't do these things, everyone's going to get a trophy. Seriously? Why even? And we drive them to a video game world where they can do all those things. And then we criticize them for being there too much. Boys can't win for winning. We remove the reality of outdoor competitive boy-friendly play and then belittle them for entering a virtual reality that parks them in front of a video game. The wonder of boys, and some of you all understand the depth of that statement. The wonder of boys is lost in a culture that doesn't value the benefit of risk-taking and adventure. Reminds me of a group of boys and girls who are gathered at a retreat setting like this, and they were sent off into the night with a pen and a pad and a candle and a book of matches, and they were told, go out and think deeply about yourself and write down your thoughts. Well, the girls went off into the night and wrote in the notepads those little flowery things about themselves. I am beautiful. We had all those wonderful things that in culture we tell them all the time, which I think is wonderful. You don't hear that message about boys. You don't have entire campaigns that are built around you're strong, you're capable, you can do what it is that God's equipped you to do. You can do big things. You don't hear that. You hear all that girls. The girls that write all this flowery stuff. The boys go out, they throw their pads in a pile, light them on fire, and have a great time. You know? The girls get the lesson, and they're going to go do that. The boys are like, hey. Boys are drawn to adventure. to manage their desire. But here's the thing. That scares us a little bit because we don't know what they're going to do out there, but it falls to us as the leaders to make sure that we're providing the gyroscope. And they have a built-in gyroscope that manages their desire for risk and competition. There's actually something placed in them that keeps them from lighting the pads on fire and not your car. There's something in there that does this. And primarily, they're guided by three things that they're looking for. Who's in charge? Who's with me? And what is our mission? And if you can define those three things, if you can manage those three things, it'll keep the boys from being crazy. They want that balance. They need to know that. Who's in charge? Who's with me? And what is our mission? If you can answer those three questions, which I think we do really well in Trail Life. Who's in charge? Well, we have a hierarchical structure. You know where you stand. We use the patrol method. So even in the patrol, right down to the last boy, we have that in place. I know who I'm supposed to follow after. I know who is my leader. Who's with me? Well, we wear a uniform or a patrol patch. We understand where it is that we fit. I'm part of this group. I'm not part of that group. This is where I fit. These are the ones that are with me. We're on a mission. We know what our mission is. We set clearly, guys, we are going to hike 5 miles today. Or we're all going to go set up our campsite right now. Or we are all going to, this is what we're doing next. When you can answer those three questions for boys, they will produce wonderful, beautiful things. If you don't answer those questions, it looks like rebellion and apathy. Because it's like, I don't know who's in charge. I don't know what the mission is. I don't even want to get involved. That's what that looks like in our schools. Now you got a rebellious kid. Or one of those kids says, I don't know who's in charge, so I am. And now you got a rebellious kid in the school. They want to have those three questions answered. If we can answer those, we've set a gyroscope in place, and they will do the right thing. Now, who does this really well? Gangs. Why are gangs so successful? They are really good at this. We should learn from them. Who's in charge? Who's with me? Very clear on that. And what is our mission? It's not necessarily a good mission, but I'll tell you what, we can learn a lot from gangs. And they are scooping up these young, unattached, fatherless boys in record numbers because they can answer that question. If we can answer that question for boys, we'll see the same type of growth. And we'll also manage somehow to keep them safe. Third strategy is the need to move. Boys are losing out. They're not developing a strong, capable men because we're not letting them be fully boys. We interrupt a generations-old natural process of maturity by declaring it inappropriate or childish or rebellious or inattentiveness or hyperactivity. Being a boy is not some sort of social disease that needs to be eradicated. The drive and daring tendencies of healthy boys are what's responsible for much of what's right with society when those boys become determined, winning, and focused men. So how do we begin to address some of these challenges? I'm going to switch over now to the other book, 5 Critical Needs of Boys. These are tools that you can add to your backpack, if you will, that can help lift boys from this condition. Now, my heart, and the question was asked last night, isn't just for dads, because our responsibility and the need goes way, way beyond that. James tells us that religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. To visit orphans and widows in their affliction. There's a call in our society saying, the United States now has more fatherless households than any other country in the world. And the call to those boys is huge. Not too long ago, visiting a troop in Texas, a man came up to me and said, "You see that boy over there?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "He doesn't have a father at home." I said, "Wow. But you see that man over there?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I connected those two. That man makes sure that boy has what he needs every week. He calls him, makes sure he's going to be here, helped him buy his handbook, helped him get his uniform, answered his questions about the program." He said, "You see that boy over there?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "He doesn't have a father at home either. I've connected him with that man over there." And he went on and on. And I was like, who are you? He said, when I was 9 years old, my father died. And a group of men in an outdoor organization embraced me and took me under their wing. And I've made it a point to make sure that every boy that I come across has that same opportunity, because it made all the difference for me. In terms of what boys need on the trail, boys need a map. A map speaks to someone having gone before them. There's immense power, there's wisdom, there's confidence built into a boy when he knows someone who has been where he's going. A safe, intentional atmosphere of growth through mentorship is the perfect environment for boys to grow in. We're doing that in Trail Life. Puberty, insecurities, peer relations, all difficult points on the trail where a boy can benefit from someone who has been that way and recorded it like a map. The lines on a map, now present to share with someone else. It's the most helpful form of true ministry, to go through something and then turn around and be transparent enough to walk somebody else through. How do you offer a map to a boy? You've got to be willing to enter his world so he knows there's a familiar face that has been where he's going. You got to be willing to take the time to engage and care. This isn't just a troop of boys. These are individual boys who are brought together in a troop. When we stop seeing them as individual boys with individual needs, we lose the opportunity to influence them in the most deep ways. Woodlands trailmen. When you encounter a Woodlands trailman, I do this almost every time. I drop to one knee, eyeball to eyeball. I connect with him somehow physically, hand on his shoulder perhaps, and I listen to him first. You know, people really aren't interested in what you have to say until you've heard what they have to say. And this is particularly true, and it's solid gold with little guys. Because think of their world. It's everybody's up there. Some of you will know this. Mom, 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 mom. You know, everybody's up there. It's like, you know, dad, 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 dad. Drop down on one knee, eyeball to eyeball, physical touch. That's huge. Focused attention. Listen to him. Speak to him. PowerPoint of contact, a handshake. Give that boy that trailman's handshake. Get that connection. Make it a little resistance for him. That's huge. Eyeball to eyeball, physical touch, focused attention. That's huge for boys. That's how we become better maps. Boys come alive when they know someone is listening. Number two thing, boys need a compass to set a course that counters the cultural relativism and confusion. As politically incorrect it is, we must return to acknowledging that there is such a thing as absolute truth. In Trail Life, we speak of eternal truths that come straight from the unchanging Word of God. Boys want boundaries. You know, I remember hearing about a schoolyard experiment where they allowed the kids to go out and play in the playground. And part of this experiment, they removed the fence. And the kids stayed closer to the building. They put the fence back up, the kids went back out, and they climbed the fence, or on the fence, or at the fence, or but they were safer, they were more secure knowing what their boundaries were. And because we're removing so many boundaries culturally, we've got to make sure somebody is setting boundaries for boys. They want them. The Bible says the lines have fallen to me in pleasant places. These boundaries that we have, these things that God sets out that says thus far and no more. We need those for our boys. They want those things. We had a boy in South Carolina show up at a troop, and he was difficult to deal with. The troop master told me it was hard to discipline. He just wasn't paying attention. It was difficult. It was first or second meeting, and just really challenging. The parents dropped him off. They didn't even meet the parents. It was just a drive-by, and they were gone. Later that week, he got a call from He didn't know if they were impacting this boy or not. He was just there, and they're just trying to keep him in place. Got a call from the mom who said, I need to talk to you. He said, okay. He said, my son is praying at the dinner table. And he said, okay. She said, no, you don't understand. We don't do that in our house. And he said, oh. And what do you say at that point? I'm sorry. And then the next sentence was, but we want to. Can my husband and I attend your troop? Isn't that crazy? Here he thought that he was harming this boy by trying to keep him within some sort of boundaries. But the boy was saying he was embracing that. There's a place that I can push up against that stops me. And in our own very real relationship with God, there is an element of him where he is the God that stops us. We always have the choice to push beyond, but he gives us his word, and he gives us a direction. He says, thus far and no more. And so for that boy, that was the switch that said, wow, there's somebody who will draw a line for me. It's huge for boys. They need those things. Ponder how your own opinions have changed just by breathing in the atmosphere that we live in. Your attitudes towards sexuality. Just look back at yourself 5 or 10 years ago. And imagine these kids, they've grown up and they haven't known anything but same-sex marriage. They grew up in that. That's not new to them. So they need some boundaries. They need some true things. And folks, we can't be passive or wishy-washy for fear of being ostracized. Give up. You may hear me say this again. Give up on your dream of being loved by everyone if you're going to live for Christ. It's more likely that you'll be burned in the public square than memorialized there with a statue. Think deeply about the things of our faith, about the things that are true. And talk to your sons, talk to the boys in your troop about those things. Express those thoughts clearly. Your words and your example of courageous living are the compass that boys need for their lives to matter. They need to know there is a true north, and your troop may be the only place they see that. In fact, it's very likely. There's very few places in our culture today that are declaring true north. Number 3, boys need a flashlight. These are dark and uncertain times. It seems like every day we awaken to a new definition of something that was previously given and used to provide societal stability. But this isn't progress. I think you all know it's reckless. But to leave boys unsure of who they are and without the words and actions that shine light in the darkness is a great injustice to their future. Stand strong on the things we know. I don't know your experience, but when the BSA began their moral slide, we knew we couldn't stay. To do the easy thing and float with the culture into darkness was not the right thing for my family. It would have been the easiest. But we must be examples that show the difference between right and wrong. I learned how important this concept of courage was when my Eagle Scout son received an email from the Boy Scouts in January 2014. He had left the Scouts as an Eagle Scout and joined Trail Life USA. And they sent him an email saying, "We realize you have not renewed your membership. Can you tell us why?" He came to me and said, "Dad, I don't know what to do with this email." And I said, "Son, pray about it. What do you want to do?" He said, "I don't know if I should answer or not." "Son, this is written to you. This is your thing. I'm with you. I love you. We'll get through it together." And he said, "Okay." And he took like 2 or 3 days to ponder how he was going to respond, or if he was going to respond. He came back to me and said, "Dad, I'm going to respond." I said, "Great." He says, "Can I share with you what I want to say?" I said, "Yeah, if you want my input or whatever." And I sat down, prepared for this dissertation on why he left Boy Scouts. 3-word response. He said, "You weren't brave." And I realized that may have spoken to them, or maybe nobody read that. But it spoke to me. Because all the time and the effort that my son had put into that, which is an amazing accomplishment, you can't take that away from anybody. Everything he devoted to make that happen, he walked away from just because of that. And I knew at that moment that if I wasn't brave, he could walk away from me too. Listen, our boys are hungering for somebody who will set those kind of absolutes, who provide that kind of flashlight, shine light on the truth. I'm so thankful that something that I had done communicated to him that lack of courage was a good indicator that you need to move on. But it also crystallized in me that I better be showing him continually. Jay, you've probably got it in one of your books, the importance of courage in raising your sons. They're looking for that. Boy needs a guide. The guide speaks to someone, or even a group, a tribe, a troop, a patrol, who walks alongside. This is the peer group, the adult mentor. Boys love outside challenge and hierarchically structured environments. They thrive there. They need clear boundaries, designated leadership. They want that. There's a necessary relational emphasis in leading boys versus girls, believe it or not. Boys want you to earn the right to be followed, which is why things like courage is so important. They want you to earn that. Anybody ever have a substitute teacher? Yeah. Teacher walks in your classroom, "I'm your substitute for the day." And again, I'm speaking in generalities. The girls are like, "All right, you're in charge. What are we doing?" Boys are like, "Dude, what do you got?" You know? Are you sure? Are you sure you don't know us? You don't know Jimmy, what he's capable of. This is not a safe environment, Mr. Substitute. What do you got? And they're going to test that boundary like the fence in the playground to say, can you keep me safe? And at our core, we're asking that question all the time. You walk in a room and it smells a little bit funny. Is this okay? We're constantly asking that question. Am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? Well, boys are asking that to a high degree because their imaginations are such that anything could happen right now. And so they want to know from that substitute teacher. They want that relational thing. You kind of got to prove yourself. In an environment of shared values, boys are drawn up to a level of maturity and seriousness about things like their faith and who they want to be. When you can provide a model of that says, I've got the goods for this. There's very few places, the military and things like that, where people will follow just because. And although there's wonderful principles in the military that we can use in Trail Life USA, wouldn't it be better if people followed because of the character that we're exhibiting? Where the boy said, I want to follow him not because he is my ranger, my patrol leader, my whatever. I want to follow him because there's something in him that I want to rub off on me. So it's important to provide a guide, and to be a guide. Seeing values in the boys and men around them builds their own value system. It's so necessary to battle the contrary messages that boys are bombarded with. Finally, boys need a mountain to climb. Weakened expectations and participation trophies have had their effect. And grasp this statement. If we fail boys today, it won't be because we over-challenged them. It'll be because we under-challenged them. Our culture is churning out what I call unproductive narcissists at an alarming pace. They're unproductive because so little has been asked of them. And they're narcissists because we have not let them fail. We shield our kids from failure. In the name of self-esteem, which there is some value in feeling good about yourself and capable and confident, in the name of that, we have shielded them from the greatest lessons that they can learn. I can tell you in my life, it's my failures that have been the greatest teachers. What if somebody kept all those things happen? What if my parents snowplowed every road for me and made it easier? Well, we do that. Boys need a mountain to climb. They need that challenge. You know, I'm the guy who signed off on the 52-star flag for the uniform. Some of you are not aware of that. So, what a great opportunity for humility to come upon someone. Because I'm in an environment, and I'll tell you, pastors are in the same environment, and I've pastored. Car dealers are in the same environment. Jay, I don't know if you knew this, I ran an ad agency for 15 years. I worked with all car dealers, and car dealers are like pastors. They're a lot alike. I love pastors, I was one. The car dealers and pastors are alike. They're surrounded by people who basically, their close circle agrees with them and tells them how wonderful they are. And so I could easily fall into that kind of environment because people say really nice things to me. And the fact that we did a 52-star flag, John, that was brilliant, wasn't it? Keeps me humble. It's those failures that teach us, hey, you got to pay attention. You aren't all that. And I've had multiple failures since then. That was just one of the first biggies. It's amazing what we can learn from those things. But if we protect our sons from those experiences where they get to grow and learn and say, hey, you know what? I love you. I love you. We'll get through this. What's the second thing? I love you. It'll be okay. We'll get through this. That's huge. Boys need a mountain to climb. I remember hearing from a mom in North Carolina. Horrible set of circumstances. The father had to leave the household and left her with, I think, 3 boys and a girl, I think. The oldest was 15. And praise God, a troop master knew of the situation and reached out, and finally got her to put those boys in his troop. And the older boy went on his first adventure. It was a backpacking adventure. I think it was a 5-day trip. Put that big old heavy pack on his back. At the end of the first day, he came home after the trip, came home to his mom and said, Mom, at the end of the first day, I thought I was going to die carrying that big thing. The second day, and I don't know how I got through that. I was so sore and so tired. I was hating every step. The third day, I had no memory of my former life at all. Which is, almost to hear like I've just walked in darkness, you know. But the fourth day, I saw the peak. And the fifth day, I stood on it. And Mom, I learned that I can do hard things. I'll tell you what. She wrote us a letter with that story. And she said, to a mom, that's pure gold. And it is. Because what they were facing in their household was something that they had to know they could get through. That one day there would be a peak to stand on. That there are going to be those kind of difficult times that you go through and you go through them. But you get through them. And we shield our boys from that if we're not careful. That's exactly why programs that are designed to grow boys and girls in a single model, in a single delivery system, are not going to challenge them appropriately according to their unique needs. We're just going to miss it there. And you got to break that down another step. And Jay referred to this when he was talking about the arrows. Every arrow has a different target. Every boy in your troop has a different target. He's designed for something different. And it may be difficult. You may see something in him that he doesn't see. And it's okay to point that out. Listen, this is going to be hard, but I really think I think you're going to be a patrol leader someday. And that could be the last thought on that young man's life. But if you see something in him And you can begin to develop him that, let him see something in himself that he doesn't see. Rather than taking that same kid and when he's having a rough time, say to him, you're never going to amount to anything in this troop. Do you ever want to be a leader? You're not going to be doing that kind of thing. If you find something in him, I was a youth pastor for years, so I learned, the first thing I do is find out, every year you get a whole new group of kids. It's like starting over again. So I like to find out the kid who had the leadership abilities. He usually wasn't the straight A student, and he usually wasn't the best behaved kid. He was the one people followed. That's the number one requirement for leadership, is that people follow you. It doesn't matter if you have the plan. It just matters, are people following you? And I would find that boy, and I would find something that he could do, and I made him a leader. Built him, let him believe something about himself that he couldn't believe. You could take these skills and you could put them to work somewhere else. Aimed those arrows and prayed for them to hit the target. So that's why our program, designed specifically for boys. We say Christ-centered and boy-focused. I get the question all the time from people, aren't you a lot like Boy Scouts? We have uniforms and we have handbooks and we have a robust awards program. We do outdoor stuff. But I got to tell you, there's two things that separate us that are huge, that make us completely different. We're not even competitors, because if these two things matter to you, you're going to choose one or the other. It's not a choice. It's not a competition. This one does and this one doesn't. It's clear. We're Christ-centered and we're boy-focused. And we're never going to give those things up. That's who we are. We would be ridiculous to do that. If we did that, I would tell you, go join Boy Scouts. They've been around a lot longer. They don't put 52 stars on their flag. They do other stuff, but they don't put 52 stars. If those aren't important to you, go find something else. If they are, it's a no-brainer. You're in the right place. Welcome home. This is where you belong. So programs that are designed to grow boys, boy-focused that we have, are not going to challenge them appropriately. We need to make sure that we do that right. Boys are starving for the attention and the time of good men. And the fact that you guys are here this week, giving up what's probably a week's vacation, it's just, do you know how humbling that is? To recognize that? You could be at Disney World. No? Okay. Or anywhere. But you're here. That humbles me. Say, man, I get up every morning, and I'm not going to pretend like we haven't made sacrifices. We all have. Everyone on our team has made some huge sacrifice to be a part of Trail of Youth. From the home office, from the board, our lead volunteers, everyone's paying a price to be a part of this. But man, I say, you guys, geez, it's beautiful. Thank you. You're making a difference. What you do matters. Those boys will be changed because you're here, because you're making a commitment. Somewhere along the line, God has tapped you on the shoulder and even either said, think about this, or you better get your butt over there. Or somewhere in between those two things. But you listened. And you came, and you're here. And I thank you. That's why I believe that trailmen are the best men I know. I think we go till what time now? 10:45? Does anybody know the end time for this? 10:50? Okay, good. Any questions? Yes. Yeah.
About the boys rising up to a goal and setting the standard. It was pretty cool last night. The young adventurers who were leading the flag ceremony, and the young man who was leading didn't even realize, I don't think, what he was doing, but he held up his hand to do the oath, and right as we started, he just lifted it just a little bit, and just a little more pride. And I saw at least 8 guys around me. We all, we all just rose to that, to that leadership. And so I just thought that was an awesome example last night to see that, and just how we think, that level of.
Yeah. Background story: the boys who did that color guard didn't know they were doing. There was another troop that was scheduled to do the color guard. I still don't know what happened to them, but they didn't show. And they just went over to Summer Adventure and grabbed a couple kids a couple guys and say, hey, can you come do this? And they came and I thought they did an excellent job not having any real time to prepare or anything. So thank them if you see them. Anything else? Yes, ma'am?
I had a recent experience. Our church does upward basketball. So we were at the welcoming station, and I said, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to give all these young boys who are doing upward basketball a little handout about trail life. And I would talk to the boys. I'd say, here's some information about trail life. You know, it's an outdoor adventure program for boys your age. And the boys would line up. They were so excited. And then their fathers would say, we don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to do that. Or, so how do we get, the boys want it. How do we get that? And these are Christian, Upwards is a Christian program. How do we get dads vested in doing this? Because I think that's a big, the boys want it. Their dads are busy.
I'm going to answer that in the same way that we answer the question that we get a lot saying, when are you going to have the military give special recognition to freedom rangemen? Well, it's not like you call up the military and say, hey, you know, that will happen as people begin to see the product of what it is that Trail Life's producing. When the best that you have right now is a sports program, which does teach some of the same things that we do. When the best that you know is that, then you're going to choose that for your son, and you're going to say, we don't have time for anything else because this is going to help grow you, if that's all you know. But as our trailmen get out in the community and people find out, where did this young man come from? And we're announcing this week a $100,000 scholarship from Erskine College for Freedom Rangemen. They recognize the value of the Freedom Award and the young men that we're churning out. They say, we want those boys on our campus. What do we do to get them there? And we said, well, give them some money. So those type of things, you know, it takes time to develop those things. You just don't flip a switch and everybody knows. But when people start to see, okay, sports has some really good, there's some great character opportunities in there. It's good for them. It keeps them off of other things. It's an alternative to many other things. It does create a thing where you have a hierarchical structure. Who's in charge? Who's with me? What is our mission? Very clear on that stuff, so it's attractive to boys. But as people begin to understand the Christ-centered part and the values part that comes out of Trail Life USA, I think you'll see them choosing that more and more. Anything else? Yeah, Stephen.
Kind of follow up on that, and also what Jay said this morning about making your kids your hobby.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I get it, the world stuff, and dads are under a lot of pressure. Sometimes you just want to go off some steam and get away from it all. But I got involved with Trail Life because I recognized I wasn't doing enough for my son to be a big enough part of his life, and I wanted to find something I could do with him. We could be together.
Mm-hmm.
And to get you guys to realize that, put down the clubs, go with your boy.
Yeah, that's great. As people hear that, and when they hear your heart, and they'll see the difference, there'll begin to be a difference. It's a wheat and a tares kind of thing. The boys that are being raised with these values, it's like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you know, you'll begin to see that their faces are brighter and more full than boys, other boys. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I love your accent. Where are you from?
I'm from Africa.
Where? Okay, Africa's a big place.
I'm originally from Cameroon.
Oh, okay, Cameroon. Wonderful. No, that's okay. I struggle with English myself. That's good. I've spent a lot of time in Ghana, and I thought I heard a little Ghanaian. But no, your question is yes, it's built into our program. If you're doing the program right, you're making a difference in these boys as we go, as you're walking along with them. So that mentorship is coming, and they're mentoring each other. And men are mentoring other boys' sons. You know, there's areas in my life that I'm weak in, and I love the fact that when I'm with other men, they can fill those things for my boys. My dad was always jealous of other dads. And so when I would find a connection outside of him, he would discourage that. And I would hope that we have the thing we recognize, you know, that dad is actually better at that than I am. So I want my son to feed off of that. So it's It's intentional in many ways, but in other ways, it's happening in our midst, all the mentorship and discipleship. Does that answer your question? We can talk afterwards because we're out of time now. All right. I gotcha. Yeah, we can talk. All right, thank you very much. You've got a workshop at, I want to say 11:05. Okay, thank you.